I haven't had a chance to experience that kind of adrenaline or that kind of hunt because quail haven't been as populated
right.
in my lifetime. So we're going to learn about what we're doing as an agency and as a country, really, to try to bring back quail and in the regions that they were once here and plentiful.
The award-winning Tennessee WildCast is on the air with the latest on hunting, fishing, boating, wildlife watching, and all things outdoors. Make welcome your host, drummer and outdoor expert novice, Jason Harmon.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Tennessee WildCast. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We got a fun show for you today. Don King is helping me co-host. He's in studio today.
You bet, Jason. Glad to be here. Good to be able to share this new information.
Yeah, we're excited about this new plan that's out. It's the bobwhite quail plan, or we'll get the details on that from Roger. Roger Applegate's our guest today, and he's joining us via Zoom. So, Roger, thanks for being with us.
Very glad to be there.
Hey, you know what? Before we introduce Roger, I want to say, before I forget, we always forget, Todd is our producer, and he is the one punching the buttons over here, making this Zoom thing work for us. So
exactly.
Switching everything. So anyway, we really appreciate him, and glad we could welcome Roger electronically this morning.
Yeah, Roger, he's up in our wildlife division, and we'll let him introduce himself and tell us who he is. He's been on the show once before, but it's been a while, so we'll reintroduce Roger to everybody, and then we'll kick off and talk about this new management plan that we've got that's new to the agency or been updated anyway. So go ahead, Roger.
Sure, Roger Applegate, and I'm I play several roles. I'm the coordinator for small game, fur bearer, and also wildlife health programs for the agency in a wildlife and forestry division in Nashville. So I work statewide and do lots of things promoting these programs and collecting data and guiding research projects and various things like that are important.
So when you got questions about small game and, like you said, fur bearers and trapping and things like that, you're the man to call. Everybody calls on you, right?
That's it. And every time they see some sick-looking animal that doesn't look normal, I'm the one that gets the call. I get probably 5 of those a day sometimes.
All right.
How long have you been with the agency, Roger?
For 15 years.
All right.
Some change.
So did you start out here? That was before my time. So
I actually, prior to this, I was in charge of small game management and research programs in Kansas, in a state where they believe quail are declining, but I think most Tennesseans would say they've got plenty yet. And they do by comparison to us. But.
Yeah. I remember Roger and I have talked about, being in the Midwest, and I grew up in Nebraska, and hunting pheasant in Nebraska. I think back and I think how bothersome quail were when I was hunting pheasants. How they would scare you. A covey would fly, and oh gosh, that'd get your heart pumping there.
Well, that's cool. I haven't had a chance to experience that kind of adrenaline or that kind of hunt because quail haven't been as populated in my lifetime. So we're going to learn about what we're doing as an agency and as a country, really, to try to bring back quail and in the regions that they were once here and plentiful. So, Roger, I look forward to this conversation. First, let's talk about the plan. I'm going to pull it up on the screen so folks watching can see it.
Yeah.
And Roger, you'll be able to see it too from your angle. But if you're listening on the radio, go check this show out. If you're listening on podcasts, go tune into the video portion, and so you can see this stuff. But we're going to try to explain it the best we can today to help y'all understand what we're trying to do. So first, I want you to tell us about the team that the team of folks that are working with you and came up with this plan. And I'm going to share the screen now, so we'll see that.
Yep. Yeah, so we assembled a group. We wanted to make sure that we had representation across the wildlife division, but we also knew that we needed to have some representation from our biodiversity programs as well. And most importantly, we wanted to make sure that we had some land managers, some folks that actually have to do this work on the ground. And so we selected several folks, and I mean, you can see, you can see the names listed there, but what I can tell you is some key things that I'll point out is that, we had Brandon Gilbert, for example, Wes Winton, and Bill Smith are land managers. Their responsibility is managing wildlife areas, and they manage wildlife areas that have quail. And so they work with this this process of restoration every day. I mean, literally, it's an everyday thing. And Brian Chandler, I'll mention, also coordinates our forestry programs, and forest management's a pretty important part in this part of the country for managing quail, because it's sort of the base that we have land to work from. So Brian's very key in that. We also have David Haney, who's basically our bird expert for the agency, and he works with is interested obviously in quail, but also all of the other birds that live in the state and live in the same conditions that bobwhites do. And James Akins, Wally Akins, is the assistant chief of our Wildlife and Forestry Division. Pretty key. Stephen Thomas is one of our habitat biologists. And Stephen works out of an NRCS, a Natural Resource Conservation Service office for us and for that agency to help with managing habitat on private lands and most importantly, bringing some of the federal funds that are available through the Farm Bill to those folks that want to work with us on habitat. So this is very key to have his experience as part of this development team.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's really it was really a multifaceted group that I was just very tickled to be able to put together and get in a room pre-COVID when we were doing a lot of this, actually getting in a physical room together and talking about these things.
For sure.
So that's an all-star really cast cool. There. That really is an all-star cast.
And I'm tickled. I'm really tickled at having had the opportunity to bring all these folks together.
You talk about the private lands part of it too. That's important because I mean we have a lot of WMAs, a lot of public land that we can manage, but private land plays a big part in this, right?
Yes, it does. And in fact, from a recent survey that we just finished conducting about small game harvest with the University of Tennessee, really most hunting for small game species really occurs on private lands, and that's reflective of the fact that that's the majority ownership of the land we have. We're blessed to have a lot of agency-owned land, but it's hard to make those agency-owned lands available for hunting everything that people want to hunt, and so they have to sort of be managed in certain ways. For example, waterfowl areas, which we have out especially in West Tennessee, lots of wetland areas for waterfowl. You just really can't help quail much on those areas because you have to have water on them for so much of the year. So we really can't make those multiple use that much from the hunting standpoint. So we have to concentrate in places that have mostly land and land that we can manage, and a lot of times that's forested acres.
For sure.
And a lot of the private lands, though, on the other hand, we can have some areas that have agriculture and pasturing for livestock and so forth, and it makes the process different.
Well, one thing I want to make sure we mention our partners, and you mentioned a little bit about how we work with other agencies and things, but who are some of the key partners that we work with to make some of this stuff happen? So,
of course, the Natural Resource Conservation Service, USDA, is a key one. That's our real key in dealing with delivering habitat on private lands, because they have Farm Bill money that's available through that program to put on it. Also, U.S. Forest Service, which owns land between the lakes, an important area that's here in Middle Tennessee, as well as significant acreage in Cherokee National Forest out in East Tennessee. University of Tennessee, which of course, really does a lot of science for us. They're really key for that. Quail Forever, which is the ultimate organization we have that focuses on quail. It's very important to our activities, as is some of the other organizations like the National Wild Turkey Federation. We have a Tennessee chapter of that, which is very active in just general habitat management.
Sure.
And so, and there's lots of others that you can see here as well, and some that we're working with, Fort Campbell and other military facilities that we have within the state and so forth. And we're cultivating more involvement of the National Park Service and some of these other groups that you see there.
That's cool.
So it's really important having these partners, and we're going to have more, I know, as we go.
Right.
These were just the ones that we consulted during the planning, but as time goes, we're going to be dealing with lots of other groups that are not listed here.
Well, as you can see, there's a lot of people got their hands in the pot and making things happen for this plan. We don't want to leave out our executive staff here, directors and chiefs of divisions that are helping make this stuff happen. They're very important as well. So it's great to see everybody jumping on board and coming together to make something like this happen. And so let's jump into some of the goals. We want to make sure we hit those today, and I'll scroll fast to get down there. But this is the foundation. This is what we're trying to achieve, right? Right, Roger?
Right.
I see number one is habitat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And so then we have outreach, and actually that's one of the reasons we're here today is that important component, and we'll talk a little bit more about these in a bit, I think. But,
yeah.
And we have population goals because we need to get numbers to levels that allow them to be sustainable over time. And in order to do any of that, we've also got to have some research. And believe it or not, we're lacking in research for here in Tennessee. I mean, it was done years ago, and things have changed so dramatically since any real quail research was done. We need information on what it's like today. These very low populations, they're very isolated, small in many cases. We just need to have more of that information. So those are all really key parts to the plan. Those four big areas cover like just everything, that you really need to do.
Roger, what would you say would be the biggest change that's happened, since the research was done before?
The biggest change is just the landscape, really, of the state. So when you think about when research was done by the agency, the last time any research was done by the agency, for example, was in the 1970s. And it was based at Laurel Hill WMA. And Laurel Hill WMA in the 1970s was all open land that was suitable for quail from one side of that area to the other. And for most people that have been to Laurel Hill in recent times, it's mostly forested. And it's an excellent place, by the way, to hunt squirrels. But quail hunting opportunity and habitat for quail is very limited there because it grew up in the midst of, the many years since that research was done. And then research was done by UT quite extensively focused at Ames Plantation in West Tennessee. And since that period of time, managing processes and this was all the last research there was, I think, probably early 1990s. So already over 20 years ago.
Right, yeah.
And so Ames Plantation, for anyone that has been there and knows what Ames Plantation looks like now, it didn't look like that in the 1990s and prior when UT was involved with a lot of research. There. So the landscape, the amount of forest, the diameter of forest, the canopy closure of forest lands, all of these different things have changed. Agriculture has changed. So just, think in terms of tobacco, for example, was still a really major crop in much of Tennessee up until just about 20 years ago. And so, and believe it or not, tobacco land was actually not bad quail habitat because it was always rotated. Patches were always rotated from year to year, and had fallow conditions that are just super ideal for quail.
Right.
We don't have that now. There's some, but I mean, it's very limited compared to what it was.
I think it's important.
Those are just a few of those key land things that just have happened.
Sure.
I think it's important to let folks know that we haven't been sitting back twiddling our thumbs. I mean, we've been working on quail for a long time, even since I started with the agency and been here. I've heard of things y'all are doing and working towards this management plan and working towards goals and things like that. It's something that doesn't happen overnight, right, Roger?
That's exactly right. Exactly right. We didn't get down to the low levels we are now. It didn't happen just overnight. It happened over a long period of years. And so the climb back up the hill, if you want to think of it that way, to get back to something that is far better than we have at present is also going to be a long climb. So it's going to take some time, and we're building at it. And we have not been idle. I mean, this plan comes along just as another step in other plans that we have had over time, and they have expired, and we've implemented those, and we've been building this. It just shows how deep the hole is that we're climbing out of.
Well, you mentioned Bill Smith and his he manages the help me out, I'm forgetting the name now.
Kiker Bottoms.
Kiker Bottoms, yes, and you see a lot of quail out there. That property is exploding, and it shows that's an example of what we can do, and that's one of the demonstration areas, right? Can you explain a demonstration area for?
Yeah, so a demonstration area is just what Kiker Bottoms is. At present, it's a property that through a lot of years of careful management, that they've built a population there that is huntable. It can sustain hunting. Now, it doesn't sustain hunting all season long every day. It's done, more restrictive. And it also in some ways defies kind of some of the science we know about quail, and that is that the acreage is not anything near what the textbook, so to speak, the science says needs to be. It also doesn't have the kind of management that a lot of people think you have to have. So a lot of times they think about, quail hunters think about tall timbers down in Georgia and Florida, which is sort of a big research area that's down there in the pine lands. And a lot of the research they do focuses on artificial feeding and focuses on a lot of practices that are very intensive and very expensive to implement. And Kiker Bottoms doesn't do any of that. There's a little bit of predator trapping and hunting that takes place there, a little bit, but it's not real control in the intense sense. And you don't see lots and lots, you don't see artificial feeding, and you don't see lots and lots of food plots. There are some, but you don't see lots of them in the way that you do on some of those plantation type management situations. Right. But yet the population is close to a quail per acre, which is amazingly good because really, it's more like a quail per 4 acres. And that's sort of the trigger where if you have a quail per 4 acres, you can start thinking about very careful, cautious hunting. In other words, a little bit of hunting can take place, and you can harvest a few birds and not damage the population. And it's better than that. But then you've got the southern plantation, which has, more like two birds per acre, which is, double that. But that's because they put lots and lots of money into additional things like artificial feeding and so on.
Right.
Okay.
So we're managing up to that, hoping to be up to that quail per 4 acre type situation, and maybe even a quail per acre where we can. Those are the really kind of the things you need to target for. That's the kind of some of the basis behind a little bit of that, and where Kiker fits into that, and it's a demonstration because this is, if you do this, you have a pretty good chance of being successful.
Right.
Okay. So we want to emulate that, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. So talk about a quail focus area, and if there's something on that PDF you want me to show, I'll bring it back up.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay.
And there's a really nice illustration, I think, that will help visualize what I'm going to tell you about, which is the approach that we're using for our plan is called Focus and Anchor.
Okay.
And so what it is, it really should be the reverse. It should refer to it. The reverse is anchor and focus. And so what it is it's based on an anchor. And the anchor, which is this gold colored or yellow colored area in this illustration, is a wildlife management area. This is one of our agency wildlife management areas, whatever that is. It could be Wolf River, any of the ones that we've selected to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And our plan is maximizing the amount of acres that are suitable for quail and the number of quail on this area so that excess quail will now disperse into areas that are outside of the boundaries of that WMA. And that's the purple or bluish looking area, which we call a focal area. And so that's an area where there will be other ownerships that are not WMA, but they can be just privately owned farms, commercial timberlands. They can be state forests. They can be national wildlife refuges, national parks. They can be any place where some quail habitat can be developed and managed with those various ownerships. And quail can now expand their populations into those surrounding areas as a result of the populations being created through management of those anchor areas. And when times get rough, like if an owner says, yeah, this is too much work, we can't continue to do this habitat work, we will still always, at a very minimum, have quail in those anchor WMAs.
Okay.
And when there's fluctuations in habitat outside of that, there's always going to be quail there that can populate when times are good and conditions are good outside of that area. So in the conditions we have right now, we don't have that situation. So quail populations actually just totally disappear from large areas because there's no source for birds to come back into. So that's kind of the concept. That's the real basis. And then a lot of what we're doing in this plan then is really structured to implement this process. And then down the road, we'll talk about, there's a couple other things related to this that I'll hold for later, if that's okay. And then we'll kind of get into those as we get down the road here.
Sure. Well,
discussion.
We got about a few more minutes here. We can dive into some of this. One thing I did want to make sure that we highlighted was a few of the objectives for the goals that we had set, and we're scrolling through this document fast, folks. So if you're tuning in, make sure you go to our website tnwildlife.org. You can pull this document up and read through it, understand it more. But anyway, I want to highlight some of those objectives that we had under our goals, and highlight them as you'd like, Roger. We've got a few minutes here.
Yeah.
But we can't dive into all of them today.
Yeah, I know, and I think it's better if folks have a chance to really read it anyway, and I would encourage people to do that. But so we have those goals, and that we already mentioned earlier, habitat and so on. And so the habitat goal here is probably one of well, they're all key. I guess I don't want to say one's more important than the other, but this is the one I think we all agree requires probably the most work and if not, and if anything, the most cost as well. But what's really important here is because we have private land biologists that work as habitat specialists on private lands and so forth. One of the things that we really want to do is to use them to maximize the amount of land, and also helping to educate people how to manage land for quail and things of that sort.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a really key piece of this. And of course, maintaining and maximizing the habitat that's on those anchor areas is also very important. So that's really kind of some highlights. And again, you'll be able to read these and at your leisure, and kind of go through more of the detail behind what's here.
And here's my favorite.
And then outreach. Because here we are. This is actually part of objective one of this process, and hopefully not the last time that we do this, but I'm hopeful that Jason and folks will invite me back again for some more discussions about some things in the future.
And we've got it out there on the website. Really that's part of it too, is getting it out there for folks to read.
That's exactly right. That's an important piece of this as well, is just getting information out to folks. And we're hopeful that we can organize what we're referring to as a Quail Summit, which would be perhaps an annual sort of a meeting or gathering where folks can come and hear about, and I hope in the future really come to a place and be in a room with all of us and interact with us, physically about quail management, and have some speakers to help, talk to them about ways to improve their land and so forth. And then we have this population goal, which is pretty important. Because that's the bottom line, is we have to maintain and increase the population. And then we have a research goal, and we're implementing the research goal. In fact, right now, we have a research project starting with UT, and that's forming up, and it's going to look at those WMAs and help guide us with what management we need to do on each one of those to improve the populations.
Good deal.
Well, Roger, we're going to run out of time, and I appreciate you being on the show today. We'll bring you back. There's a lot more we could discuss and elaborate on, but remember, tnwildlife.org is where you can go find this report, this plan, read through it, understand it the best you can. Call if you have questions, email us. We're here to help, and we just appreciate you coming in and talking to people today.
Sure. Glad to do it.
Thank you, Roger.
All right. Well, this is Tennessee WildCast, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in. Stay connected with TWRA by visiting our website at tnwildlife.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hey, it's all about Tennessee wildlife. It's what we do. Tennessee WildCast will be on the air again next week. We'll see you then.